Hi, my name's Ian Wright, and today I'm going to talk about something I think is very important, and I'm calling this the beginning point of all meditations, the starting point of all meditations. So, I've been practicing different forms and exploring different forms of meditation for over 25 years now. All sorts of practices from an array of Buddhist practices and Taoist practices and other meditative processes, because I'm fascinated by it and I think it's very, very important. And I've also been teaching colleagues, osteopaths and other people in basically sensory development practices, developing our sensory awareness for a long period of time. And in October I've got a book coming out called The Dynamics of Stillness. And I thought I would start an introduction process to that over the next few weeks. So I'll just do every kind of like a weekly meditation to give us an introduction to meditative practices, which I hope you find interesting, just to start you off with little tricks and bits and pieces. I mean, the point of what I suppose I'm talking about here is, in order to do any meditative practice, you have to be in the right frame of mind in order to get anywhere. If you aren't, you can really waste your time. You know, you may as well go out for a run or run about. There are practices where you kind of jump around and jolt around a little bit to free up nervous energy, which actually isn't a bad idea, first of all. I mean, it's quite nice, actually, to do something like yoga, something physical to bring you back into your body before you meditate. I tend to meditate after, I say, I've gone for a run, done a bit of Tai Chi or something, and then I'll meditate as the last practice when the body just kind of comes into a quiet point. And yoga's perfect, because at the end of a yoga session, your body wants to go into this place of quiet. So doing things like that are fine. But in the end, in order to, meditation, I suppose the purpose, one of the many array of purposes of meditation, is to quiet the mind. But if you aren't, that's the juxtaposition, if you aren't to some degree in what I would call neutral, it's really impossible to start. And I know the Taoists would talk about this idea of coming to a point of neutral as well. Neutral is like, if you take neutral as a metaphor, it's like you're taking your brain out of gear. You know, our nervous systems drive us, our wills drive us on. Any kind of distress or distraction or anxiety. We live in an age of anxiety, you know, so our nervous systems are hyper-stimulated. We're overstimulated through all of our senses on all times. So our nervous systems are stimulated, and literally our the parts of our nervous system, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is in a state of stimulation, in a state of reactivity, normal. That's our normal now. And in nature, that is not the case. Wild animals, actually even children, very young children, are in naturally this state of neutral. The natural rhythms and flows of their bodies slow down, and actually don't slow down, are in a state of sloth. So if an animal had a same sort of sense of reaction, they'd be being chased. So, you know, and that's our normal state that we've become. It's actually it's very different to how we would have been many years ago. I mean, this is a whole big subject, this idea of finding neutral, but I'm just giving you a little bit of a heads up on it, a start, so we can think about it. But just as an aside, when I used to practice, I practiced really specialising in paediatrics. And when I was first working and teaching this 25 years ago, you know, children would start, you know, there'd be a certain degree of anxiety coming in with some children, and stress symptoms, tummy, headache, that kind of issue, would come in at sort of 12, 11, 10 years old sometimes, unless there was a real trauma. And then it went back to sort of 8 years old. You know, 10 years ago, sort of, you'd see these 7, 8 year olds in states of anxiety and distress. And now it's much even younger than that. You see some kids much younger, even 5 years old, who are in states of what I would call anxiety. And, they're displaying symptoms of that, symptoms of stress, headaches, tummy aches, vulnerability, fear, withdrawal, So, and we can blame all the usual culprits, social media, overstimulation, the internet, a lot of electromagnetic stimulation in the environments we live in, and then all the nutritional stuff, the hyper-processed foods and sugars, which send our nervous systems into a state of stimulation. If we just had a sugary coffee, it's harder to meditate, But we need to find a way, actually, to find this sense of quiet, neutral. Even if if we come to meditation, and actually sometimes with the time we really want to come to meditation is when we're in a state of distress or distraction, where we want to find this quiet inner place that can bring us back to ourselves and a little bit of calmness within ourselves. And if we can find a way to do that, then we can do our practice. And so afterwards it helps any kind of practice we do, if we can do it from a state of neutral, be that doing our homework, or to prayer, or to chanting mantras, or Buddhist chanting, or all meditative practices. For me, the starting point is finding a sense of neutral, even if we're just about to write something or draw something or do something creative. If we start from a point of neutral, we're starting where we're not in a state of reactivity. And reactivity is okay in some situations, but actually I think our true essence of creativity comes from somewhere deeper, and it's better to find that. Now, doing something creative, of course, can take you into a place of beautiful neutral as well, and that's the other way around. But the point is to try and find a degree of neutral. And this is a big subject, and I'll include this a lot when I'm with some of the later sessions. So what we're going to do today is just find a little quiet sense of neutral. So find yourself somewhere quiet to sit, where you're not going to be disturbed for 5-7 minutes. I mean, at the beginning, we start with small steps. If we can find ourselves into a place of neutral for even 5 minutes, it's beautiful, before our brains kick in again. And so there are various tricks, or what I would call ways in, and I'll be exploring them over the next coming weeks. But I'm going to start with a very simple practice, which will hopefully allow us to find a state of quiet neutral. And then we can go on to do whatever meditative practice that we want to do. And I'll cover a lot of these in the future. So sit quietly, sit comfortably. It doesn't matter how you sit. You don't have to sit in any kind of lotus position as yet. You can sit where your feet, it's better with actually your feet on the floor, so you have a connection to the ground first of all. But if you can sit with your back spine somewhat straight, it's actually more helpful to regulate your nervous system. So your back's sort of straight but comfortable. You just look slightly down a little bit, so you open up the very top joint of the neck a little bit, and you just relax your body. And I'm just going to go through a little bit of relaxation. So imagine you come into this and you're feeling a little distressed or a little off or whatever, a little wired, which is our normal place. What I want you to do is to tune into something that feels quiet, delicate, or soft in your breathing. So it's actually the softness in the breath, not anything deep, or you're not trying to breathe deeply or anything like that. At this beginning point, breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Just let the out breath be a little bit longer, half a second longer than the in breath, and let it be soft and delicate and quiet. And when you breathe out a little bit more in the out breath, it stimulates a little bit the vagus nerve, which calms down the sympathetic nerves of the body. Now, what will happen here, and what normally happens here, is as soon as you tune into this quietness in your breathing, your mind will race. Your mind will do all sorts of different things. It'll think about your day, think about what you're hungry, what you need to do, what you have done, or in other cases, emotions can come up, because as soon as we stop, we play emotional catch-up, don't we? So allow. The whole important point in this is not to fight, not to push away. Allow any thoughts, any feelings, any emotions to come, but don't lock into them. Just allow them, and just let them and watch them. And at the same time, as you go through that process of allowing, what you need to do is bring your attentional awareness back to the softness in your breathing. So whatever comes up, allow. And then bring your awareness back to this soft, quiet breathing, and soften your breathing even a little bit more. And as you do this, what can happen is things can get a little bit quiet in there. Things can soften. This breathing can actually, what it can do is stimulate this little bit of warmth in your chest, and things can quieten down, and then more thoughts come in. Allow them come, allow them go. As soon as you allow a thought, feeling or emotion, it doesn't stay, it just passes away, almost like a cloud across a blue sky. Just let it pass, but allow it. As soon as you hold on to it, block it, or try and push it away, it locks into your brain, takes over. It's a crazy thing, isn't it? So actually, the process of allowing, accepting that you have it, and then actually coming to just observe it, actually softens the whole thing. It softens any brain locking into any thought, feeling or emotion, because when we come to start meditation, it's very hard to find this quiet stillness that's always there. So once you can do that, once you find this quietness in your brain, everything starts to quieten down in there, and everything becomes more gentle. Then see if you can get a sense of the stillness that's always there around you. There's always stillness around you. You don't have to look for stillness in you. Let the stillness around you bring you to stillness. It's always there, underneath any noise, underneath any tension. There is always stillness. It's the background, ever-present background to everything. And then as soon as we align our sensory awareness to that, it makes life very, very sweet comparatively, because we can connect with stillness at will, and that's incredibly helpful. So, basic principles are softness of breath, allow whatever comes up, and observe. And then once you find that quiet, once things quieten down, tune into that stillness that's there, ever present and around us. And that is the beginning point, because we are in neutral. And if we can get to neutral, the rest of it becomes easy, and then we can do our prayer, our compassion meditations, our consciousness practices, our Taoist, our Buddhist meditative practices, where we connect to whatever we need to connect to. Or we can tune into stillness in motion, or motion in stillness, or dynamic stillness. So there's a whole array of things that we can do from that point. But once we find that beginning point, we're on our ways. Anyways, I hope you enjoy that. I wish you well.